Ladies and gentlemen, we have a report from NBC's Peter King inside the Las Vegas Raiders draft room on draft night in the first round. And we learned a lot about how the Raiders felt about the quarterbacks in this class and how they felt about other players who did not fall to them. And Josh McDaniels had a weird first thing that he said to Tyree Wilson, which we'll get into. But the Raiders seem like they're in a confident position after the draft, and this report explains exactly how they felt. So originally, the Raiders were never interested in the quarterbacks. Obviously, they did not trade up. Maybe they were only interested in Bryce Young or CJ Stroud and they knew they were not going to fall, but they were preparing for 3 quarterbacks to go before they picked. That is what Josh McDaniels said. And when they did see Anthony Richardson go to the Indianapolis Colts, it made them very stoked because they were specifically eyeing 4 non-quarterback players at their pick 7. And one of those was Tyree Wilson, who they ended up drafting out of Texas Tech, the edge defender. But they're also looking at Devin Witherspoon, who ended up being drafted by the Seattle Seahawks, and also Will Anderson, who was drafted by the Houston Texans, and Paris Johnson, who was drafted by the Arizona Cardinals after a trade with the Detroit Lions. So these are the 4 players that the Raiders are looking at. So they still want to solve that tackle position, thought Will Anderson could be a good edge rusher, and also want to find a number 1 cornerback. That's what we could learn from these positions that they're eyeing here, but they also probably thought these were just the best players in the top 10, and I would agree. These guys were highly touted, and that's why they did go before the Raiders pick. Mark Davis, when he first walked in the room, said that we're undefeated. Yes, Mark, the season has not started yet, so the Raiders are technically undefeated. So once the Cardinals grabbed Paris Johnson, the Raiders talked to them about a trade. They ultimately wanted to go in front of the Raiders and grab Paris Johnson, the offensive tackle, and the Raiders grabbed Tyree Wilson. And this is the decision they made. Yes, there is the foot injury there, but they think, according to their doctors, that he should be fine. Some people thought that he might actually miss week 1, might never be the same player after this foot injury. There's a lot of mystery surrounding it, but the Raiders must feel confident in their medical evaluation of Tyree Wilson, and it seems like he should be good to go week 1. And Peter King notes how this is an odd thing to hear a coach talk about immediately when you first meet a player, which was media training. That's what McDaniels first wanted to talk to him about, saying you're going to talk to the media here in a bit, and wanted to give you a few points. Be humble, which you are. Stay away from predictions. That way you don't have to eat them later, and don't talk about timelines with your foot. That's the big one there. Josh McDaniels does not want any talk about this foot because it is a negative story, and that is going to be the conversation about Tyree Wilson until he eventually plays. But we've heard reports about how the team monitors the social media of players, so it does sort of make sense that the first thing McDaniels says to the guy, Tyree Wilson, your new franchise edge rusher, is what to not say and what to say to the media. Come on, genius Josh, you can't be caring too much about what people think and say. But what was really interesting here is the fact that after their first round pick, the Raiders wanted to trade back into the first round, and they almost made a deal with the devil, the Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City would have given them pick 31 and 217. The Raiders would have had to given up their pick 38 in the second round and pick 70 in the third round. But ultimately, the Raiders decided that was way too much, and they made the right decision, sitting back and waiting, getting the player that they wanted in tight end Michael Mayer. On Tyree Wilson's foot, Ziegler is quoted saying that if we wouldn't have felt comfortable with it, we wouldn't have picked Wilson. And Peter King is saying he believes the Raiders found 2 starters in this draft with Wilson, with Mayer. And Mark Davis gave a huge endorsement of Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler, saying, when we hired them, everybody thought we were trying to recreate the Patriots, which, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, like, it was half of our roster Patriots players at this point. That wasn't it. I was trying to find 2 great football men. Now this is their chance to build something. They're young. They love football, and I'm thrilled with them. It's a huge weekend for them. And I think Mark Davis is trying to like pump them up, trying to say some nice things after he made that weird comment in The Athletic where he said that the people around Dave Ziegler might not be giving him good advice and he's so new at the job. So Ziegler's trying to back his guys while they have 3 more years left on their contract, including this year. And here's my main takeaway from this Peter King report from inside the Raiders draft room is the fact that the Raiders felt like the board fell exactly how they wanted it. They did not want a quarterback. They did have a few players that they thought were as talented as Tyree Wilson who did not fall to them, and they ultimately believe they had a successful draft. That's the main thing. So the Raiders feel like everything went how they wanted and they got the guys that they did want. So there should be no excuses for the Raiders this year. They should definitely have a better record than they did last year, only 6 wins last year. They claim they got their quarterbacks, the right scheme fit in Jimmy Garoppolo, a good backup in Aiden O'Connell, and a good veteran mentor in Brian Hoyer. You feel like your defense is better with Tyree Wilson. They claim that they're going to rotate Chandler Jones and Tyree Wilson, and that will ultimately make their defense better. So I just really don't want to hear any excuses from Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler this year. They should have high expectations because they believe they got the guys that they want, and this is their second offseason. There's no more excuses. You can't keep blaming Gruden for you not having a good roster anymore. Now's the time for the Raiders to put up. And look, I'm excited. I think it's totally a possibility. Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler have to make it happen now. I think Mark Davis is eyeing the situation, being like, yo, I'm trying to pump you guys up and defend you guys, but now we need results. And you see the fans are still heated. You have this here on NFL Network. During the draft, there's a man, looks like a Raiders fan, holding up this sign saying Josh McDaniels eats corn the long way. Now, I'm very family friendly. I don't get the joke at all, guys. I don't. If you can explain it in the comments, let me know below. But the main point is there needs to be results this year. There can't be this excuse, oh, the division's so hard. Oh, well, you know, we're still a young team. Oh, we don't exactly have the right guy. I feel like they did address a lot of needs in this draft. And if it really was just a scheme problem last year, not the right fit with the quarterback last year, then they should win more games this upcoming season. I think it's totally possible. Because think about it, last year, most of the losses were one possession games. We gave up huge leads. So in many ways, this roster was still capable of being a playoff team last year. They just came up short too many times. And I really like the third round pick, Trey Tucker. I think he could be very explosive. Michael Mayer is going to be a starter for sure. And then you got Tyree Wilson there, who will definitely be a starter by the end of the season. And I'm very curious to see how Byron Young does, the defensive tackle. I think he could be a sleeper good pick for the Raiders in the later third round. Either way, after the draft, after free agency, after you've seen everything happen around the NFL, let me know your record prediction for the Raiders in the comments below. If I'm trusting everything they're saying, I think they should win 10 games this upcoming year. I think that should be the expectation. Let me know your predictions in the comments below. Check out some of these other videos that you may have missed about the Raiders. My name is WiFiWillie. Peace out, and I hope you have a good one.